LSGGGG. Welcome to Laying the Points with FarleyBets, the first ever Laying the Points podcast here at TheOddsBreakers.com. It is my absolute pleasure to be your host for this new podcast. My name is Chris R. Farley, commonly referred to as FarleyBets on social media, and I am so grateful to get this opportunity to share my voice with you about something I am incredibly passionate about, and that is the world of sports and sports betting. You can find this podcast on iTunes or Spotify or Google Play and all those other places where podcasts are found. You can also listen to it directly at TheOddsBreakers.com. Hopefully, if you're listening to this pod, you're aware of TheOddsBreakers.com, which is where I am a contributing writer as well. And TheOddsBreakers.com, just so you know, is your number one place for shared, sharp betting information. So not long ago, back in January, not sure how many of you know this, but I was given the opportunity to start writing for TheOddsBreakers.com, which is something that I was just so incredibly thankful for, finally to be able to put some of my knowledge and my angles and my opinions and just write them out, right, and have plays officially, legitimately. So I've been betting and learning and growing and honing skills in sports betting for a good decade now. And it's just, it's been one of those passions where you don't even realize that it's your passion because you're just so locked in and you're doing it nonstop every day. And like so many of us, I was just looking for something now. I've been looking for something for a while now to grab onto that gave me more fulfillment in my career. And this has given me that. And needless to say, I am absolutely stoked to be recording this first podcast for all of you, laying the points with FarleyBets. Man, I can't believe it. But here we are. So hopefully you've all seen and read my daily articles at TheOddsBreakers.com. I write every day on MLB and the NBA, and so far my record for the NBA is 58%. Now that's a percentage since February 1st, and that's over 200 picks. I don't know what the exact number is here. I can pull it up on my phone if you want. Let me just pull it up here because I'm kind of curious because I forget. So my record is 139 and 102, and you can calculate that if you want. And that is 58%. And then since the start of Major League Baseball, I'm hitting at 59%. My record is 23 and 16. So doing pretty good. I wrote a few articles for football, and I can't wait for that season to come around again as well because I love football, and I probably have the deepest knowledge there. The way that this podcast will work is I'll give my thoughts and opinions on the latest happenings in the world of sports handicapping and sports betting. Sometimes that'll be a fun rant. And sometimes you'll hear how fired up I can get, like about the Astros last night. I'm recording this on Tuesday, so that was Monday night. And how as a minus 285 favorite, they beeping blew it. And the Nuggets on Sunday. The Nuggets pulling out Jokic late into the third quarter, never bringing him back into the game, and then just imploding because him and other starters were out. I like to voice my opinions. I like to shoot from the hip. I'll try not to curse. I do that a lot sometimes. It comes from my military background, so it's sort of built into me. And, maybe you shouldn't be letting your 7-year-old hear this in the background, especially if you're betting sports when you could be buying him or her some books or a new bike or, I'm just kidding. I am in favor of you sports betting and especially in favor of you listening to this podcast. But again, I'll try not to curse. I know that turns some people off, but sometimes I just can't help it because, God, there's some crazy shit that happens in sports. Anyway, I'll have my rant to start these podcasts, and I'm sure, as always, I'll probably find a way to talk about football, even if it's not football season, because it's my favorite sport, and it's the biggest sport in America. And I love football, but I love all sports. And, the NBA and now Major League Baseball might be rivaling my record and my performance that I usually have in the NFL because I am doing really well. And then this year, maybe it's the pressure of having to put out these articles and plays. I do better under pressure, man. I'm like Brady. Now, fourth quarter, here we go. Okay, that's probably not true. In the second and main part of each show, I'll go over some games that are coming in the next few days and the wagers that I'll be putting my hard-earned money on. And I'll be mainly focused on NBA betting right now, although I may sprinkle in some MLB thoughts. The baseball season is just starting, so it's important to be more judicious about your bankroll management. There's just still so much we really don't know yet, especially after an abbreviated 2020 season. So anyway, I'll try to keep these podcasts between 30 and 45 minutes, may go a little less, may go a little more, depending on how much there is to talk about. So as to not take too much of your time. I know everyone's busy, but hopefully on those walks with the dog or your car rides or you're putting away dishes like I always am in this damn house because my fiance doesn't like doing that, but that's okay. I love her. She's great. You have the podcast on in the background, right? And you don't want it to, you don't want it to distract you or take too much time. This isn't Joe Rogan. We're not going to talk 3.5 hours. I don't think I'm that important, but we will get into sports bets. We will get into what I'm betting, and we'll talk about and we'll analyze these games from a perspective that I think has been working and I've proven has been working for quite some time. All right, so let's start with this little rant. Now, I've had a lot of success in betting the NBA this year. Okay, so I'm not complaining about betting the NBA in general. But one thing that's starting to really tick me off, and I know it's ticking off a lot of people, not just me, is this idea or this routine of NBA owners and coaches and players. Everyone is just okay with these players just resting, right? They sit out games. I know this is old news, right? This opinion has been out there for a while, but hear me out. The Nuggets game on Sunday is a great example. If you were on the Nuggets, when I think it was -7, -6, I mean, you were on the right side. I was on the Nuggets. I was on the Nuggets to cover. They were dominating that game on both sides of the floor. As predicted, the Nuggets starting lineup, which has gelled since Aaron Gordon got there. Everyone knows who the leader is. It's not Murray. It's Jokic. They're a great team. They have talent everywhere. They have great chemistry. Most of that is because of Jokic. But to pull him out late in the third quarter when they're doing so well, it's another win. It's another W in the column. I mean, I guess, or maybe to assume that they could just win by just pulling everybody out when the Celtics still have their starters in. It's unreal. Okay? And this idea that players can just rest, Kawhi's tired. I mean, Kyrie Irving, is his nephew, does his nephew have, a homework assignment they has to help him with? I don't know what's going on here. Okay, but this is not the way sports are supposed to be played. You have a job. You get paid. You get paid a shit ton of money. And your job is not all year round. You don't get sick days. You don't get days to just take off. Okay, you are deterring fans and sports bettors all over America. And let's talk about that, right? I mean, sports betting in America is bigger than it's ever been, and it's only going to get bigger. I mean, have you seen the stats, the data from the states like Jersey who have allowed sports betting, right? You can sign into the apps. You can go to your local casino. I mean, they're through the roof, right? The revenue from sports betting, if you go to any bar, and now it's not just dudes, it's not just bros, okay? There are ladies that bet, all ages, all types of people bet sports, right? But I'm willing to bet that if you go to your local sports bar, you go to your city sports bar, wherever the hell you go, and you run into Mr. Bro, who's like 28, and he's out watching the games or is with his friends or whatever, I guarantee you that guy has some money on the games, right? He's betting. Everybody's betting. Everybody's a little bit of an action junkie these days, which is partially why I want to make this podcast, so that you're not just an action junkie, you know what the hell you're doing, and you can approach these games and these angles with a sharp mind. That's the whole reason why we're doing this. It's to win you money. And you have sports bettors who are primed, man. They're watching a game like the Nuggets and the Celtics, and they're like, hey man, I have $50 today. I have $50 on a Sunday of my hard-earned money to put on the line, to put up to the test, and I think it's the right side. And these jerk-offs are pulling players in the middle of a game. They're pulling their starters. I mean, I get the whole resting, like you're trying to rest players for the playoffs. But what these teams and what these owners and coaches and players don't understand is not only is that deterring the very financial structure that supports you. I mean, the reason why you're able to get paid, the reason why you're able to get paid anything is because of the fans, and increasingly because of sports bettors. We're all invested in every game. We want to see what the outcome of these games are. And we're on the right side. and you're pulling the rug under us, and we're losing those games, we're losing those bets. Are you kidding me? And even for the average fan, I get a little like mafioso, when I'm mad at. Wait, are you kidding me? Even the average fan, man, he's passionate about his team, her team, the Knicks, the Nuggets, the Heat, whatever the hell, whoever you cheer for. How highly do you think of your players? If it's a Thursday and they're just not feeling right, take a rest day. A lot of people say that they idolize Kobe Bryant. R.I.P. Kobe. Miss you, Kobe. Kobe, you're the man, Kobe. Kobe was it, man. He was one of the best of all time. No, you don't. You don't appreciate Kobe. Because you know what Kobe brought to the table? Kobe Bryant was at the gym on the road or at home. He found a gym, 3 a.m., and he's practicing his shots. He's shooting free throws. He's shooting jump shots. He has to turn on the lights. The lights probably take an hour to come on. He's getting little sleep. He's spending time away from family because that was his drive to be the best. That was his drive to win. And what do we see today? Kyrie Irving. I'm sorry I keep on using him as an example, but he is the quintessential example. He doesn't feel good. He has a meeting to attend. Bitch, this is your job. This is what you do. This is what you get paid for. And this is why the NFL is king, folks. This is the main reason why the NFL is going to remain king in pro sports. Players don't take off. Players are in the game with injuries, especially towards the last part of the year. The season is short enough to where every game matters. I don't care if it's week 1 or week 10. You can't lose in week 1 and week 2. You can't fall behind in your division. Also, it's a tough guy sport, right? These guys earn their merit. They earn the respect of their teammates from staying on the field and battling. That's where they earn it. How much respect is Kyrie Irving earning, sitting on the bench and then walking into the game with an attitude? Now listen, the guy has unparalleled point guard talent. The way he dribbles, even the way he shoots, he's remarkable. But this is why I don't think the Nets are going to go very, very far in the playoffs, right? This is turning into a Nets rant. But the reason why this makes no damn sense is because this is hurting the teams that allow this sort of thing to happen. The number one reason why teams win, in my opinion, in the playoffs and in championships is because they have chemistry and fluidity as a team. That's why. The Buccaneers won the Super Bowl this year because Tom Brady came into town and he was the glue that held that team together. As far as we're told, Brady was texting his players that week, all week, 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m. Yo, we're going to win this game. We're going to win this game. Right? The chemistry, nonstop, being all about that game, all about their sport, no matter what. That's what brings teams together. The Warriors worked in their glory years because of Steph Curry. When Kevin Durant came to Golden State, Steph took a back seat. He said, hey. Steph Curry, who just eclipsed for the most points ever in Golden State Warriors history, Steph Curry, who's one of the best shooters of all time, said, hey, you know what? I'm going to take a back seat because Kevin Durant has a big ego, a big personality, and he is one of the greatest talents to ever play this game. And Steph Curry became the glue for the Golden State Warriors. Chemistry. You're not going to get chemistry. You're not going to gain it. You're not going to develop it. It's never going to be able to gain any steam if you just allow your star players, especially in big games or in pressure moments, to just sit. And I know what people say, they just sit them during the Timberwolves, if they face the Timberwolves or if they face, the Wizards or no, that's not true. These players sit out big games at times. It's ridiculous. It's hurting the teams. It's hurting the fan base. It's hurting bettors. And it's really starting to piss me off. All right, let's tackle some bets that I'm looking at the next few days in the NBA. I'll just stick to the NBA this time, and we'll get to baseball maybe on the next podcast. All right, so the first game we're going to tackle is a big one. We have the Brooklyn Nets traveling to Philadelphia to take on the 76ers. This is not given a line just yet, but I'm thinking that the Nets will be slight favorites. I'm hoping that's the case. The 76ers are at home. The Nets are off a back-to-back in this one against Minnesota. They're facing Minnesota Tuesday night after the game was delayed on Monday. I assume that all the main stars, the big stars, will play. Kyrie Irving, well, I couldn't play Tuesday. I couldn't do it. He sat out on Tuesday's game. Kevin Durant is going to be playing more and more, still probably on a minutes restriction, but I don't know in this one. Obviously, they'll still be without Harden, but I imagine it is all systems go for the Brooklyn Nets. Both teams are going to want to win this. They split the series so far. The 76ers won in a game back in early January when the Nets were without Kyrie and Durant. The Nets won in February when with their B team out there and James Harden. So that's interesting. I think Philly just kind of dropped that game. It was a big letdown spot because everybody was playing for Philly. So, like I said, I'm really hoping that the 76ers are underdogs in this matchup because I do think that there is value on taking Philadelphia as a dog. How much of a dog are they going to be? Probably not very much. If it's more than 3 or 4, I would lean the 76ers side, but I don't think it's going to be more than 3 or 4 because at this point we all know how good Philadelphia is. I mean, they just beat Dallas on the road. They looked very impressive. And Philadelphia is a team that can go further in the playoffs. They know themselves. They know that Joel Embiid is the man. He is the star of the team. He was leading the MVP candidacy race up until a certain time in the season. I mean, I don't know where he is now. I should probably check on that actually. But they know he's the star. Ben Simmons knows that he can't produce too much on offense, although the big body that he is with the quickness and speed that he has, he's been able to easily get those high percentage shots. He's a lot like Zion in that way. And I think he's a little underrated in that way too. I mean, everybody wants to talk about what he doesn't do well. He does a lot of things well. Great rebounder, great passer. He can go up and down the floor. And if anyone who's seen him in person says how massive he is, it's like Brock Lesnar running up and down the court. It's like Zion, right? He just has to know. He just had to learn his game. I think Simmons is kind of rounding into his form. He's a role player, and I think after all the criticism, which is tough, right? It's tough for any young kid to take that amount of criticism on what you're not good at. Simmons understands his role. Tobias Harris is the same way. During Embiid's absence, they held the Sixers on their shoulders, and they had easily a winning record during that span of time. So now with Embiid back and getting healthier, and I mean the confidence that Embiid has this year, he's shooting threes, which isn't always the best idea, but he'll turn around, he'll get those deep turnaround fadeaways. He looks great. As long as he stays healthy, the Sixers are a dangerous, dangerous team, and they're one of the most well-balanced teams in the NBA. They're 13th overall in offensive efficiency, which is mid-tier. But they're second overall in defensive efficiency, and they have one of the best point differentials in the NBA. Even the Lakers, with their number 1 rated defense still, them and the Knicks kind of go back and forth. The Lakers are 20th in offensive efficiency, and they don't, flex the same point differential that Philly does. So Philly is an all-around, complete team. They have chemistry. I think Doc Rivers has done a great job in Philadelphia, kind of growing that, molding that, maybe making some of these egos a little more humble. And it started to show this year. All that being said, and you already know how much I hate the Nets. I think the Nets are going to win this game. Brooklyn is not far away from Philadelphia. The Nets are going to have a day off, and then they're going to invite the Hornets on their home court at the Barclays Center. So they're absolutely not looking over their shoulders. Philly does have the Clippers in 2 days. And, for all that I hate on the Nets, I do think that Kevin Durant is probably the greatest basketball player currently in the NBA. I mean, the way he came back in that first game after that long hiatus from injury, and he was just stroking it, and he was confident. I think he started like 5 for 5. He might have finished 5 for 5 in that first game back. He looks better than ever as long as he can stay healthy. Kevin Durant And Kyrie Irving, despite how much he annoys the shit out of me, I don't think they're going to have their way with the Sixers, but I think they will win this game. Durant's playing with a lot of moxie as a team. If they're motivated and focused, which I don't think they will be entirely in the playoffs, and I do think when the big three all play together, it's just too much. Harden's going to want to shoot. Kyrie is going to want to have an impact on every play. Durant is going to want to shoot. I think it's going to be too jumbled. But Kyrie and Durant, Kyrie feeding Durant, working with a bigger man like that, I think it's going to work out. At least until they face Philly in the Eastern Conference Finals, that's how I think it's going to work out. In this game, I think it sets up better for the Nets, who still feel like they kind of have to prove themselves a little bit. Even though they have a great record, I think they're second in the Eastern Conference. They still have something to prove as far as how they're going to gel as a team, how they're going to go against, one of the best teams, the team with the best record in the Eastern Conference in Philly. So Philly just kind of feels like they're playing with a little more house money, if you will. Okay, next games on the docket for Wednesday, we have the Bucks at the Timberwolves and the Wizards at the Kings. For me, these should be surefire over bets. The books are starting to catch up with that, though. A lot of these lines are set at like 240, 239, 241. If either of those games are below 235 or 237 or 236, I would go with the over. We're talking about 4 teams who are in the top 10 in pace and tempo. Sacramento is the only team that's not top 5 in pace. So the Bucks are the only team not in the bottom 5 in defensive efficiency. Out of those 4 teams, they're number 8 in defensive efficiency, but they're number 19 in the NBA in points allowed per game. The other 3, Timberwolves, Kings, and Wizards, they allow the most points in that order. The Wizards are the worst. So, expect a lot of points. If, this is what I like to say for over games. If for some reason they start off slow, so if you see like 55 points in the first quarter, or maybe 110 in the first half, or maybe under 110 in the first half, a good idea is to live bet the over at that point. It's going to be reduced to probably 225, 230, and a lot of times these teams will start to pick it up in the second half, or oftentimes they'll go really hard in the first half, and then it'll sort of drop off in the third quarter and fourth quarter. If you're ever live betting NBA totals, you'll notice that if they score a ton of points in the first and second quarters, the books anticipate that the third quarter is going to be less points. So if it's like 65 and 68 in the first 2 quarters, you'll usually see the live total for the third quarter at around like 55, 56, 57, because they just expect some regression to the mean in the third quarter. So just, watch that teeter-totter that happens with totals, but I like the over in both of those games, but I've been sort of getting my ass kicked with totals lately, so, be that. Take it as you wish. Another game to just watch for me is the Memphis Grizzlies at Dallas on Wednesday. Dallas is off a loss to the 76ers at home, which we called. But this is at Memphis, and Memphis is a great ATS team. As you know, they're one of the best in the NBA. They cover about 60% of the time. I think it's like 62.5%. Kristaps Porzingis was questionable for the Sixers game and ended up not playing, but I bet he plays here. So this is just a really interesting game. I probably won't bet on it. I'll probably just watch and see what happens. Memphis, for how clutch they usually aren't, they've been playing very well lately. And Luka, and especially if Kristaps is back, it's not a good idea to count them out as long as they have Luka. And they have a lot of role players too. Brunson is really good. Hardaway Jr. Can really pick it up on the offensive side. So that should just be a good game. Watch for that line. If it for some reason favors one team significantly, like 4 or 5 points, I would just go with the dog in that case. Another great game to watch out for is the Miami Heat against the Denver Nuggets. In my opinion, if the Nuggets are a significant favorite, which they could be, I would fade them. The Heat have been playing really well. This is like playoff time for the Heat. They're starting to show off how resilient they are, how tough they are. Jimmy Butler brings that toughness. Their defense is getting better and better. Now they face the Suns tonight as I record this. This is Tuesday night. And odds are they're going to lose. right, against the Suns, or at least it's going to be a tough game. So it's a tough grind to the next day go to Denver. I mean, that's a really grueling road game. But the books know that, and the books might inflate this line a little bit. It might be like 7, 8. I don't know. But if the books are really disrespecting Miami here, I wouldn't count them out. The Nuggets have been flailing a little bit. They looked unbelievable there for a stretch. Now they've lost their last 2 games. I don't know what Mike Malone is thinking in this one. Who knows who's going to pull out in the third or fourth quarter in this one. I'm still a little sour about that. But I would lean the Heat side, assuming that the Nuggets get over 5 or 6 points. All right, the Thursday games. Here we go. Boston at LA facing the Lakers. What a traditional, historical matchup. Obviously, injuries still looming for the Lakers, but I kind of like the Lakers a little bit in this one. I think they're going to play hard off a loss to the Knicks, bringing a lot of defense. The Celtics have been improving on their defense lately, but they really in the second half of the season, they haven't looked as sharp. The Celtics are one of these teams, kind of like UCLA in college basketball, right? Where they're just a little too shot dependent. They're unorganized on offense. And I think that's something that the Lakers can expose. I mean, the number 1 defense, according to ESPN's Hollinger metrics, belongs to the LA Lakers. And for a reason. They're really, really good on defense, even without LeBron there. That's pretty crazy, right? That they've maintained that without Anthony Davis and without LeBron. That's pretty amazing. Coach LeBron might be making a big difference there. Anyway, Boston is off winning 3 games in a row. 3 kind of not too impressive games, especially that last game against Denver. So if Boston is too much of a favorite here, saying like over 5 or 6, I'm going to be all over LA. Okay, let's wrap this baby up and talk a little bit about Friday's games. I really, really, really think that the Utah Jazz are going to whoop the Indiana Pacers at home. If that's under an 8-point line, which I think it should be, I will be all over the Jazz in that one, especially if the Pacers win. Here on Tuesday night, the Pacers are facing the Clippers at Indiana. They were winning at the end of the first quarter. Let me give you a live update here, although this is going to be over, obviously, by the time you're listening to this. But yeah, Pacers, who I picked to win tonight, are winning 40-35 in the second, and obviously that could quickly turn around. But if the Pacers win this game on Tuesday night against the Clippers, they face the Houston Rockets on Wednesday night, and then they'll be traveling to Utah, and I think they're going to get their ass whooped. So look out for that. The Clippers are at Philly, and Charlotte is at Brooklyn. The Charlotte Hornets, ladies and gentlemen, traveling to Brooklyn. I would think about what happened in the Philly and Brooklyn game on Wednesday, and maybe base your bets off of the Friday games for Philly and for Brooklyn based off of what happened. So, in other words, if the 76ers get blown out by the Nets when they face the Clippers, and there'll probably be a reduced line there. Again, this is assuming that all the starters and all the players are actually playing. No one's sitting out for rest. Assuming that that's the case, if Philly loses big to the Nets on Wednesday, I like their side against the Clippers. They might even be an underdog, even at home, because the Clippers are the Clippers and Kawhi should be playing. If Brooklyn loses at Philadelphia on Wednesday, I would favor the Brooklyn Nets big in that one. And there's probably going to be of course, Durant could sit. Kyrie could get, the flu or like a little tiny version of the flu and sit. But it just seems like if the Nets lose big or lose in a disappointing fashion to the Sixers on Wednesday, they're going to whoop Charlotte's ass. They're going to want to whoop Charlotte's ass or whoop somebody's ass. So think about what happens on Wednesday for those 2 games. And lastly, on Friday, Zion Williams and the New Orleans Pelicans travel to Washington to face the Wizards. I would look for player props on Zion in this one. I would look at the over. Neither team plays defense here. The Pelicans are 27th in the NBA in defensive efficiency. And we all know how bad the Wizards are. They're last place in virtually every defensive category. So, there's no reason why this game should go under. There should be 70 points per quarter in this game. But again, these teams know it too. They know how bad they suck on defense. They could try and slow things down. You got to watch with the Pelicans because the Pelicans they have like a personality disorder. They go up and down, up and down. Sometimes they play slow and methodical. Usually they play at a faster pace. Washington usually forces teams to play at a faster pace because they play lightning fast. I mean, it's amazing to me that the Washington Wizards and their coaches haven't figured out that maybe if you just slow down a little bit. The Wizards are number 1 in the NBA in pace. They play lightning fast, and it doesn't work. So, slow the hell down, Washington, will you? I don't think it's any coincidence that the Knicks are the 30th place team in tempo. They're the slowest team in the NBA, and they're number 2 in the NBA, often number 1 on defense. Coincidence? I think not. All right, guys and girls, well, we are at that 30-minute mark, or right around there anyway. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Please keep on tuning in. Like I said, I would love to do at least 2 of these a week. I guess I won't say at least. We'll start by doing 2 a week. I promise I'll do 1 a week, and I will absolutely try to do 2 a week. There's constant action right now. We have horse racing around the corner. We got UFC fights almost every weekend. I will absolutely talk about UFC. We got the NFL draft coming up, guys. The NFL draft. Pretty excited about that. I'm excited to, anytime talk football, which I'll try to incorporate next time, actually. But I want to keep it short. I want to deliver this in a nice little neat package for the first podcast. So thank you all so much for listening. Check us out on all the podcast mediums that you would get your podcast. Go to TheOddsBreakers.com, which is your number 1 place for shared sharp betting information. Check out my articles there, as well as all the other fantastic writers that we have at TheOddsBreakers.com. That's it for me, signing off. LFG. Let's win some money.